From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Well, it'd be nice if I added myself to the show. Again, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Packed show today. Salt Typhoon finally, and Neuberger, the deputy cybersecurity advisor to the president of these United States, finally comes out with more information on the Chinese attack. We'll be talking about that, and then the fallout following her announcement yesterday of the scale and intensity of the Chinese hacking campaign, as well as Chinese propaganda around it. We'll also get into additional cybersecurity news, like a BT investigating a data breach that they went through, and Russian and Pakistani spies are there, as well as news on Pegasus, because we haven't talked about NSO for a while, so why the hell not? So buckle in, tune in, here we go. Like, subscribe, share, comment below, and as the tradition goes, we typically do a coffee cup cheers. Obviously, traveling, espresso, not very good where I'm at the moment. Found a place, but it's like a 10-minute drive. It's an espresso is only good for 8 minutes, really, realistically. So with that being said, coffee cup cheers, y'all. Let's get the ball rolling with yesterday, Deputy National Security Advisor Ann Neuberger offering details about the sprawling Chinese campaign that gave officials in Beijing access to private text and phone conversations of an unknown number of Americans. Now, here's what she didn't say. Who were the victims? She didn't say that the attack was neutralized. All of those things were not said yesterday. The scope of what Ms. Neuberger said yesterday was the scope of the attack after FBI and CISO issued guidance just a day before in order to root out those attackers and prevent similar cyber espionage campaigns in the future. And now, I know from a good source that the reason this happened was because the media pressure and congressional and senator pressure around the publication of this data was no longer sustainable for the White House or the national security apparatus. And the reason I say that is because they still say that the Chinese are still in some networks, with some telecoms still working to remove them out, meaning they're not out yet. They haven't fully done remediation. So that's not there yet. So Ms. Neuberger added during her call with reporters that they don't believe any classified communication had been compromised. Now, that's a very interesting statement to say. And whenever someone in government says we don't believe, it just means that it really did happen. It's just a matter of we can't talk about it as of yet. Because otherwise, they'd say no classified communications were compromised during this. When we say they don't believe, they're just saying that as of right now, we think some communication may, but otherwise have not. I'm just kind of reading between the subtext here for all of y'all, helping you understand this. They say this only targeted a small group of individuals. According to reports from the Wall Street Journal, that's around 150 people is who they really wanted to spy on, including President-elect Donald J. Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, current Vice President and former Democratic presidential nominee Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as some staffers, campaigners, as well as people who have interest in China within the government, Congress, Senate, and even in the national security apparatus. So there is a risk of ongoing compromises to communications until U.S. companies address the cybersecurity gaps that the Chinese are likely to maintain their access. She said that President Biden has been briefed on the findings when he wasn't sleeping while meeting with African leaders, and he's made a priority for the federal government to do everything it can to get to the bottom of this. I'm sure he did that between naps. So the Chinese embassy in Washington rejected the accusations. They said the U.S. needs to stop its own cyber attacks against other countries and refrain from using cybersecurity to smear and slander China. No, sir. I'm propagandist, personally, but yeah, China's behind this one. Everyone knows it. You perpetrate extensive cyber attacks, so let's, not hide behind a veil of some sort of superiority, moral superiority that exists from a party who's ruled by communists. The number of countries impacted by this attack also seems to be a few dozen. According to senior administration officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity, that this didn't just impact the U.S., but likely impacted other countries as well. allies of the U.S. and also are looking to to kind of keep the Chinese away from that. So all in all, we have that. Now, there's been a few fallouts for it. One, an independent cyber incident review board is being set up by CISA within days to start looking at this. According to CISA, there's going to be a unprecedented investigation into this global telecommunication system hack. Jen Easterly said on Wednesday that she is putting together an independent cyber safety review board that is going to start reviewing this breach from A to Z in order to provide a comprehensive report to the nation and to Congress and Senate around this breach. So we'll see how that comes along, but that's not the only thing happening right now. Also, senators are urging DoD watchdog to probe the failure to secure communications amid the Typhoon hack. So this is coming from Senator Eric Schmidt and Ron Wyden. They're saying that the Pentagon's failure to secure its unclassified voice, video, and text communications with end-to-end encryption technology has left it needlessly vulnerable to foreign espionage. Moreover, they say that although the DoD is among the largest buyers of wireless telephone service in the United States, it has failed to use its purchasing power to require cyber defenses and accountability from wireless carriers. So we urge you to investigate DoD's failures to secure its communication and to recommend the changes in policy necessary to protect DoD communications from foreign adversaries. So the Senate is cracking down, wanting to understand why DoD didn't flaunt its buying power to require better cybersecurity. And this kind of goes back as practitioners. We can always say this, right? This always goes back to the what ifs. Well, could this happen? Would this happen? And how likely is it to happen? And what would be the complexity of an attack like this? And those are the things that a lot of politicians in a statement like this don't understand. I do think DoD needs to be investigated as to why the standards were so lax, but probably because what they're talking about in their unclassified communication wasn't national security matters for the most part. And if it was, it's a dime a dozen, meaning they weren't using it to make plans. It might have been, two DoD employees chatting after work on a phone conversation and maybe talking about something there, which shouldn't happen, but we all know does happen. But is that a risk that you go out and you make a whole bunch of requirements around it? There's a balance to be had here between cybersecurity and life and risk. And unfortunately, both senators here, while I definitely agree with the investigation, I disagree with the method by which they think the DoD's got to do that. Again, this DoD has failed 7 straight financial audits that couldn't account for billions of dollars that they're given. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of deficiencies within the Department of Defense that obviously need to be addressed, and the incoming administration is going to have a tall order to do just that within the security apparatus. So Schmidt and Wyden, who both serve on the Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, noted that DoD hadn't received independent cybersecurity audits of phone carriers that utilize and serve its network, and that the department isn't sure if it has the authority to carry out its own reviews of those entities. So again, this kind of goes into the fact that so many federal agencies are touching cybersecurity and excuse me, and have a hand in cyber, that what ended up happening is no one, like, is it me? Is it you? Is it him? Is it him? You kind of knighted the Roxbury, right? Him, me, him, me, him, me. Everyone pointing at everyone, right? That famous, Spider-Man commercial, who, him. No one knows. And that's, again, the problem with the fact that cybersecurity is just so disheveled at the federal level. You've got CISA that has some authority, but not everything. And then you've got TSA. I travel so much that the fact it literally, I was in line going through airport security on Tuesday, and I'm telling the guy next to me, I go, you believe it that these guys are in charge of pipeline security, aviation cyber security? And he goes, that's a scary thought. And I go, absolutely, very scary thought. The government is inefficient when it comes to cybersecurity. Hopefully this Salt Typhoon hack brings some real actual reforms to it. So, okay, my rant's over. We're going to get into some other news here because we're 10 minutes into the show and we've just talked about Salt Typhoon, and we can obviously do an hour-long show around this breach and everything else that goes around it. By the way, Miss Neuberger on her call didn't say who the 8 companies in the U.S. that were breached. We do know it's AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Lumen. We don't know who the 4 others are, but you can imagine Cisco is probably one of them, because we know that Cisco routers were the ones that were being abused. Okay, now we go back to Ascension posting a $19.7 million loss from recurring operations for the first quarter of its 2025 fiscal year. That's a $1.2 billion improvement over the prior quarter. So for those who don't remember, Ascension went through a cyber breach back in May that really kind of hit them hard, right? And so the system attributed the improvements to continued recovery from their cyber attack, as well as focus on volume growth, efficiency initiatives, and rates and pricing. Once Ascension restored access to its electronics health record following their cyber attack, the system's top priority became increasing patient volume. According to their CFO, the cyber attack caused Ascension to delay or reschedule some procedures, contributing to 8 to 12% average decline in same facility volumes during May and June compared to the prior year. So these are good numbers here to look at this and obviously use them. If you're, it's Q4. If you're spending time with your board in Q1, which most CISOs, most cybersecurity leaders do, this is the type of data that goes a long way into kind of talking about the state of risk and what we've seen from from companies who may have gone through an event in terms of volume, in terms of revenue lost. And so you can obviously say that they saw an average of 8 to 12% decline in same facility volumes, meaning during a cyber incident, could you see 8 to 12% decrease in sales volume and productivity, so forth? What does that mean to our organization? Those are good numbers, good things to refer to the board as you're going into those meetings, because now we're talking business here, and that goes a really, really long way. And by the way, on Saturday on my Substack, jamescesar.substack.com, a whole article around how do we speak business as cybersecurity people to our companies, including terms of what a CEO and a CFO and a COO and a CIO and a CTO and all of those things. So definitely go check it out. It'll definitely be worth it. Those included in the system's strategic joint venture with Henry Ford Health, linked in October, which should expand their stake in Michigan. Again, Ascension, all in all, starting to recover. The UK telecom giant BT is launching their own investigation after Black Basta ransomware group says that they stole a significant amount of files and data, including sensitive information, that were added to the leak site of Black Basta, claiming to have roughly 500 gigabytes worth of data, including financial, corporate, and personal information. Wow. I still have this annoying cough. I apologize. I thought I was over it. Literally thought I was over it. The cyber criminals are threatening to leak the stolen data in less than a week unless a ransom is paid. So there's a timer there for BT. BT, for its end, confirmed that the company had identified an attempt to compromise its conferencing platform, but at this time, they're still investigating the breach and understanding its impact, and they're working with third-party companies to do just that. Obviously, the same kind of stuff that goes there. Rapid7 reported that Black Basta has been refining its social engineering method. According to Rapid7, the cyber criminals initiated an attack by signing up to the targeted user's email address to many mailing lists, which result in a victim getting bombarded with a whole bunch of emails. The attackers then call up or message the victim mainly through Teams, offering assistance with the email problems they claim to be from IT, help desk, or support. They then instruct the victim to install an RDP tool like Quick Assist, TeamViewer, AnyDesk, or Screen Connect. And again, this goes to the management of RDP, right? Those all should be blocked. You should have your own tool. That's the only tool anyone should be able to use, and no one should be able to download those on any company-owned devices or on any device that hosts company data, right? That enables them to deploy a credential harvester, various species of malware, and then that's how they move laterally within your network. Again, jamescesar.substack.com. You'll find all the latest there. Also in the UK, the National Crime Agency disrupted 2 Russian money laundering networks working with cyber criminals worldwide, including some ransomware gangs. They dubbed it Operation Destabilize. The international investigation led to the arrest of 84 Russian-speaking suspects linked to the SMART, led by Ukrainian George Rossi, and TGR criminal organizations. The network also support Russian cyber criminals to launder their illicit profits. In 2021, Ekaterina Zanadova of the TGR group laundered over $2.3 million of suspected ransoms paid in crypto to victims by the Ryuk ransomware group, according to the NCA. Ryuk is a former ransomware as a service operation. As part of Operation Destabilize, the UK law enforcement collaborated with OFAC FBI, DEA, the French Direction Centrale de la Police Jurisdiction, and Ireland's National Police and Security Service to disrupt the criminals' rings' money laundering activities. They've also worked closely with authorities in the Emirates, which is really a main hub of laundering. Most laundering will always find its way through the Emirates. That's kind of a rule of thumb. OFAC sanctioned Zadadova in November of last year for laundering millions of crypto for various individuals, including ransomware actors. Now this whole ring has been taken down. And more on Russia is an extraordinary case of digital espionage where Russian hackers spent nearly 2 years secretly controlling computer systems of Pakistani cyber spies, gaining access to sensitive government networks across South Asia. According to research released by Lumen's Black Lotus Labs, the Russian operation known as Turla, which we've heard about them and spoke about them here extensively on the show, commandeered 33 command servers operated by Pakistani attackers who had themselves breached Afghan and Indian government targets, sometimes using commercially available Hack-5 pentest hardware devices. According to Black Lotus Labs, the attackers broke into a command and control servers used by a Pakistani APT, tracked a Storm 0156, and used that access to launch their own malware and hijack sensitive data. So an attacker attacking an attacker in order to use that attacker to attack someone else. Y'all get that? This latest campaign spanning the last 2 years is the fourth recorded case of Turla embedding themselves in another group's operation since at least 2019, when they were first seen repurposing the C2 of an Iranian threat group. I mean, this is something the Russians do. Russian APTs then that target embassies and government offices around the world. That's who Turla is. It was also observed taking control of the Hack-5 Cloud C2 node, a platform designed for legitimate pen testing and leveraged for espionage. The Pakistani group's been deploying physical hacking tools, commercially available Hack-5 devices to breach Indian government offices, including its Ministry of Foreign Affairs, before the Russians took over the operation. And mind you, Russia and India are in BRICS together. So I'm sure the Indians are ecstatic about this one, and that won't have zero effects on their relationship. We'll move on to a Solana Web3 JavaScript vulnerability that developers commonly use to build decentralized applications for Node, Web, and React Native. It has around 400,000 weekly downloads. The library itself ensures communications between dApps and accounts and programs on the Solana network. The incident this week is a backdoor incident that impacted versions 1.9 or 5.6 and 1.9 or 5.7. It contained code that allowed the attackers to steal private key material and drain funds from dApps. The project's maintainers noted in web3.js that version 1.9 or 5.8 takes care of that. So if you're using any one of those versions above, you want to make sure you get to the latest one. And again, researchers are now discovering 7 new Pegasus spyware infections that targeted journalists, government officials, and corporate executives that started several years ago and span both iPhone and Android devices, demonstrating the range of spyware may be greater than what people once thought. So NSO, obviously in the news, we've talked about them frequently here in the last 30 to 45 days, especially with the Apple trial, kind of Apple dismissing their lawsuit against NSO due to some of the discovery stuff. WhatsApp really going full force at that. WhatsApp owned by Meta and Facebook. So researchers from iVerify discovered multiple devices that were breached by Pegasus via attacks initiated between 2021 and 2023 that infected Apple iPhone iOS versions 14, 15, and 16.6, as well as Android. They also revealed in a blog post published yesterday that the infections were discovered in May during a threat hunting scan of 3,500 devices from iVerify users who opted into the checks. Specifically, their investigation uncovered multiple variants of Pegasus in 5 unique malware types across iOS and Android. The researchers detected forensics artifacts and diagnostic data, shutdown logs, and crash logs that were found on the devices. So we still see that it's active. Pegasus Spyware's reach is underestimated. Could be a very good chance that that's the case. And again, governments use it. It's not like they're out there doing it on their own. Governments use it. That's kind of their modus operandi in terms of spying. Some governments have more of an inclination to spy on journalists or political opponents or citizens, while others not so much. But at the end of the day, since 9/11 and all of the Patriot Acts and everything else, we've all been under surveillance. And so there's nothing new about that. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back on Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern live with all the latest and greatest. Go check out our Substack. Make sure to subscribe, follow, comment, like, share. Follow us on YouTube and X for all the latest. Till then, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.